nothing ever. And you never have a flat tire until you have to be somewhere like right then, and you never, my phone for some strange reason, my wife has a terrible habit of, without telling me, unplugging my stuff and plugging her stuff in right after I've gone to sleep. So then my alarm doesn't go off when I really needed it to go off. And it seems like every Sunday morning when I need something to go right with something back there on the soundboard, it goes wrong. So we got to fix though. We're doing good. Okay. Glad to see everybody here this morning. Um, to those that got to view or come to the men's breakfast yesterday, it was a good time of fellowship, and it was a good breakfast. I did cook the eggs and nobody died. So improvement. No one got sick. So if you would, we'll go ahead and turn with me to Matthew 12 today. We're going to continue our lesson series on, let me find this here again, spiritual living or daily spiritual living and what that looks like. Last week we talked about our thought life and our minds and what the Bible has to say about controlling our thoughts and what to think on. Think on whatsoever everything is lovely, pure, good, all of those things. And when you fill your mind with good things, it's going to become difficult for you to get bogged down with the things that do normally bog us down, the sad thoughts, the things we struggle with. And so today, it's kind of going along with our mind, but we're going to talk about the words we speak. Because not only is our thought life important, but also the words that come out of our mouth. And they go hand in hand, because if you don't think it, you're not going to say it typically, right? If it's in your mind, never mind. Get ahead of myself. I'll stop there. Okay, so Matthew 12, we're going to look at verses 34 through 37. So, Sister Karen, if you would, grab 34 for me. Brother John, 35. Brother Bill, 36. And Sister Roseanne, 37. And while you guys are turning there, I'll do this little bit here. All right, so the words we speak. If our lives are to please God, we must direct our actions to obey God. I feel like that's common sense there. This makes the Christian life a daily, voluntary following of the Bible and the Spirit. Our words come from our hearts. They are good or evil, as our hearts are good or evil. Our words have great power in our lives, and not only in our lives, but in the lives of others and those around us. Directly affected by our thoughts are our words. Words are the outward expression of the inward thought. Words of others have a continuous daily effect upon our lives, and our words have an effect upon their lives. We are commanded to control them both in quality and quantity. We will stand responsible at the judgment for the words you and I speak today. And our memory verse comes from Matthew 12:37, which we're about to read here in a minute, but that just says, "For by thy words thou shalt be justified, and by thy words thou shalt be condemned." So, first let's look at evil heart. An evil heart cannot speak good. All right, so we'll begin here in Matthew 12. I'm ready whenever you are, Sister Karen. Verse 35. I think it was Brother John. I think. Hmm? All right, he says up there, how can ye, being evil, speak good things? When a person with an evil heart tries to speak good words, they come out as hypocrisy. Y'all ever known somebody like that? They live one way way or they do things one way, and then they want to look at you and say, well, you should do this or that. And it's completely opposite of the way they live. It comes out as them being a hypocrite, or it's just hypocrisy. One cannot, or James 3:12, let me read that really quick. It says, can a fig tree, my brethren, bear olive berries? Either a vine of figs? So can no fountain both yield salt and fresh water. Salt water and fresh. So one cannot from the same fountain both yield salt and fresh water. And so good words cannot come from an evil heart. How do we know this? Because the Bible said right there, for out of the abundance of the heart the mouth speaketh. If it's not in you, it won't come out of you. Does that make sense? Is that harsh? Sometimes I feel like I say stuff. Like if it's not within you to say, you're not going to say it. If it's not within you to do, you're not going to do that thing. So, and what this all, again, stems from our thought life. If you think about it, you're more likely to do those things, right? So, we've got to guard our heart, because that is where sometimes we're going to put our, I'll get to that in a second. We're going to put our foot in our mouth. So anyway, so then how can an unsaved minister or preacher lead a church to God? Or how can he open the truths of salvation? The simple truth is he cannot. How can an unsaved or non-church Sunday school teacher teach a class on how to be saved and live godly lives and it be effective? He or she cannot. It says, a good man out of good treasure of the heart bringeth forth good things. Good must first be in the heart to be brought forth. And so on the other side, it says, an evil man out of the evil treasure bringeth forth evil things. The Pharisees to whom Jesus spoke to in Matthew 12 had evil hearts here. Their hearts being evil, they could not speak good things without coming across as being a hypocrite. When one talks, he exposes what is within his own heart. The heart is the fountain of life, and streams break off and flow from it. Because our words are of such great importance, and because they carry with them the quality of the heart from which they come, that either being evil or good, they must be accounted for in the day of judgment, as it said there. And then each idle word that men shall speak, or these being words that are considered of no consequence in bringing the message of eternal life to lost souls, they must also be weighed and spoken in truth. This is no time for you and I to go to look at our words with lightness or foolishness. Clean conversation is the fruit of the lips of a saved individual. Again, if you claim, we talked about this some last week, if you claim to be something and you act opposite of that thing, you are not that thing. Even though your mouth says it, your actions don't line up. If you say I'm a Christian, but you have none of the attributes of being a Christian, you're not kind, you're not patient, you're not loving, you're not giving, I'm going to have questions. I mean, I think all of us would. You know, if somebody told me that they're a manager of some place, and I would expect that individual to have knowledge of that business. And if they don't have any knowledge of that business and they don't know how it works, I'm going to have questions. Are you really the manager of such establishment? Does that make sense? So our mouths must match our lives. If we say it, we need to live it. Or else we're hypocrites. And I don't really want to be called or known as a hypocritical individual. Do you? I think we can all agree on that. Okay, so our heart, from the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaks. We've got to guard our thought life, which will also guard our heart, which will in turn guard the words we speak, and we won't speak foolishly when we don't need to. So next, quickly, let's turn to Proverbs chapter 10, verse 19. And go there as well. And Brother Shawn, are you with me there? Proverbs 10:19. So we've got to guard the heart because that's where it comes from. And next, we're going to talk about bridling the tongue. And so Proverbs 10:19 says, I'm ready, whenever you are. Or it says, in the multitude of words he there wanteth not sin. Words are weighty. Okay, words have meaning, and most of the time, words that are spoken have a purpose. So there's weight behind every word we speak, whether they be true or false. We should speak only words of truth. Even words of truth, if spoken to degrade another person, should be left unsaid. That one's really difficult for me because I love, and you can, unfortunately, you can ask my wife and she can attest to this because I'm not very wise sometimes. Sometimes I'm victim to wanting to tell someone the truth so bad I didn't consider their feelings, right? Like, did it really need to be said at that moment? Or was I just caught up in the conversation and I said it and now I regret it? Even though it was truth, it had the opposite. It was a hurtful effect. When if I would have just said it probably in a different way or would have waited until emotions were not quite as high, it would have had the effect I wanted it to have, right? So words said out of passion can sometimes, even though if they're correct, the right words are spoken, they can have a negative effect. So we need to be conscious of the situation before we say those words, because words are weighty. So talking too much can also just outright be a sin sometimes. Words should never leave our lips so fast we do not have time to put the proper value on them before we let them go. Throwing out words freely is like throwing feathers into the wind. They can never be called back. Oh, the times that I've said something and I wished I could reach out and grab the words and stuff them back in my mouth before they reach that other person's ears. Y'all ever experienced that before? My goodness. I'd save myself a lot of heartache, a lot of trouble in marriage, in relationships, in work relationships, if I would have just weighed my words before I let them go. So beware of a tongue that runs constantly, and beware of telling all you know. I feel like that's just common sense there. Next, James 1:26 says this. Let me turn there really fast. It says, if any man among you seem to be religious, and bridleth not his tongue, but deceiveth his own heart, this man's religion is vain. If any man talks without considering and choosing his words, he is deceiving himself. He may say he's saved, or he may say he has religion, but his religion, according to James here, is vain or empty or false. We must control our tongues by putting them under the control of God. James 3:2 says this, for in many things we offend all. If any man offend not in word, the same is a perfect man, and able also to bridle the whole body. If no if no filthiness, lying, anger, selfish, cutting, gossip, foolish, idle words are in this individual, if they are kind, loving, helpful, pure, and holy words, then the same man is called perfect, according to Scripture here. His words are not offensive to God or man. If one's tongue, the hardest member to control, is under God's control, then the whole body is under control, or the whole life is also under God's control. Then he is what the Bible calls a perfect man, and this is Jesus' standard for man. Christ's standard for man is perfection, according to Matthew 5:48, which says this, be therefore perfect, even as your Father which is in heaven is perfect. And he has made a way for us to attain this. This is, again, if it's in God's word, we can attain these things. And how can we attain this? We know because Hebrews 10:14 says this, for by one offering he hath perfected forever them that are sanctified, or you can swap out that word sanctified there for saved. So how can we become perfect in the biblical sense? Well, not in our own strength, because I'm always going to fail, because I'm human. But through Christ we can be perfected. And again, the perfecting of the saints is eventually you being in heaven. Okay, I don't think any of us is ever going to attain perfection while we're here. Okay, does that make sense? Okay, all right, we're all together on that. So, again, James is reinforcing the idea in James 1:26 that if you claim to be something, if you claim to be saved, you claim to be a Christian, and you bridle not or control not your own tongue, you've made your own religion vain, right? You've become the thing you don't want to be, or you've become a hypocrite in that sense. And I don't think any of us are striving to be that thing. So quickly, let's turn to Ephesians 4:29. So, we've learned so far, or talked about, the heart. From out of the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaks. We must guard our heart against saying things we shouldn't say. And then James reinforces that we must bridle our tongue or control our words because our words have weight and meaning behind those, especially in close relationships, right? There are some things you could probably say to someone afar off that you're not really familiar with that you might be able to, you'll know what I mean here, in a sense, get away with, that you couldn't have said to someone that you see all the time, right? Because the closer you are to somebody, the more your words mean. My words mean a whole lot more to my kids and my wife than they do to a stranger that I've never met, right? So our words, in turn, need to be weighed when we're talking to our loved ones, our spouse, our co-workers. Those individuals are the ones that will weigh our words the most. Therefore, we need to weigh our words before we say it to them. Does that make sense? I feel like we're all together on that. Yes? Get some head nods? Okay, we're all good? All right. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Right. And we'll, you know what? Speaking of maturity and stuff, we'll actually get to that. Yeah. 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 Let me. I think the idea that we're going towards different directions when we're talking about the perfect version here versus that. I understand what you mean though, and you are correct in that aspect. Oh yeah. No, you're correct when it comes to the word perfect in a lot of places, especially in Romans, where Paul's talking about the perfection of the saints or being made perfect. He's talking about mature Christians because that's where he's also talking about milk for babes and meat for adults. So he also uses that word there in reference, but that's a whole nother rabbit trail that we'll get to that another time. Actually, and we'll end up in this lesson series. We'll actually end up talking about that in a couple weeks. So sorry. Yeah. No. I agree. We are all good on that one. All right, Ephesians 4:29. Am I there? Are we all there? I didn't give anybody that verse, did I? Let me turn there. Okay. Since I didn't give it to anybody, I guess I'll volunteer to read it. All right, Ephesians 4:29 says this: "Let no corrupt communication proceed out of your mouth, but that which is good to use to the use of edifying, that they may minister grace unto the hearers." And actually, I looked up every other. I think here I got 6 other different Bible translations just to see how they translated the word corruption or corrupt communication. And here's what the ESV says. It says, "Let no corrupt talk come out of your mouth." The NIV says, "Do not let any unwholesome talk come out of your mouth." The New American Standard says, "Let no unwholesome words come out of your mouth, but if there be any good word for that edification according to the need." Okay, the Christian Standard Bible says, "Let no foul language should come from your mouth." The New Living Translation says, "Don't use foul or abusive language." The King James says, we just read it there a second ago, but the New King James also says, "Let no corrupt word proceed out of your mouth." So, there's been, the more you get into the weeds of this stuff, the more you see arguments and against things. But basically, all these translators agree on the word corrupt means something bad. Okay? Let no bad language or hurtful language proceed out of your mouth. That's a pretty high standard, isn't it? That's a pretty It's not, oh, well, it was sort of bad. The Bible's pretty clear. No, nothing that causes a bad result should proceed out of your mouth. If one is saved and spirit-filled, the heart has no corrupt motive, should have no corrupt motive within it. And his words will be pure and will minister grace unto the hearers. They will receive grace from your words rather than corruption. This is one of the purposes for which we have speech, to help others to see and understand and obtain the grace of God. Proverbs 18:21 says, death and life are in the power of the tongue. What one says shows what kind of person he or she is. How can one speak good things when evil thoughts lurk within? Solomon says in Proverbs 10:18, let me grab that real quick. Let me go there. He says, he that hideth hatred with lying lips, and he that uttereth a slander is a fool. Solomon says, anyone that spreads a false report yet pretends to be a friend is a fool. In other words, don't be fake. That's pretty simple. Be genuine with your words. Be real with somebody. Why would you hide hatred in your heart when sometimes bringing stuff out in the open is the best option? I know it's easier for us to hide things and not have those hard conversations, but if you're hiding things away and you're hating somebody on the inside in secret, yet you're saying nice things about them to their face, the Bible calls you a fool. It is a foolish thing to do, and it will breed bitterness later on that didn't need to be there if it would have just been brought out in the open. How many times, I'll just use me again because I'm not with you guys on a daily basis, but I can't tell you how many times things would have been better if things would have been brought out in the open and just said, rather than waiting days, weeks, months, or years to come out in the open. And then those people are shocked. I never knew you felt that way. You ever had anybody say that to you? I never even knew you thought that, or I didn't know you felt that way. This is what we should avoid. I've got time. We're doing good. All right, words are the passing on of our thoughts to others. Again, we talked last week about our thought life, and if you don't think it, you're not going to say it. We sometimes hear it said, I gave them a piece of my mind. Yes, and also a piece of one's heart, one's life, and oneself. Typically, when somebody says, I gave them a piece of my mind, and then I hear about what that person said afterwards, I'm like, why did you say that? That wasn't helpful at all. Y'all ever been that way? You said something, and you regretted it right afterwards? It happens to me, unfortunately, quite often. I'm working on it, though. Lord's helping me. All right. So when God wished to give himself to men, he sent a message or words of love by sending his son and calling him the Word. Since God used word to describe Christ, we see in part the value of the meaning of words. What of ourselves are we passing on to others through our words? Pure thoughts, kind, uplifting, life-giving influences? Or the opposite, are we destroying another person's life with our words? Because our words have meaning and they have weight behind them. All right, next, quickly, let's turn to Malachi 3. And this will be our last portion here. Malachi chapter 3, verses 16 and 17. Brother John, are you with me? I see you on your phone, so you're probably there faster than most. Getting there. Okay. Malachi 3, verse 16, if you wouldn't care. And then Sister Rosanne, Malachi 3, verse 17, who wouldn't care. Good morning, Sister Sylvia. How are you? Wonderful. Wonderful. All right, so last thing here. We must talk about the Lord. Okay? So our words, because they have meaning and they have weight, we must talk about good things. And of course, the Lord is always a good thing to talk about. Always. So, I'm ready whenever you are. Yes, sir. passion. Yes. All right, Brother John read there, it says, they that feared the Lord spake often to one another. In the fellowship of saved people or Christians, the name of the Lord should be spoken often to one another. These individuals, or most Christians, talk often of His Word, His goodness, His blessings, His love, His promises, and His caring and sharing that love to one another. The Lord always, they typoed here in this lesson. The Lord is always interested in His people, and He hears, and He has a book of remembrance written of those who think and speak of Him. Their love is precious to Him. She read there, it says, they shall be mine, and when I make up my jewels, the Lord has a special place for people who speak of His goodness and their love for Him. We love to speak of the things we love, right? If you love something, if you care about something, you're going to talk about it. You know, if you get a new toy or you buy a new car, you guys get a new house, new phone, whatever. When you care about something, you're going to talk about that thing. So if you care about the love that the Lord has shown to you, and it's real for you, you're going to talk about it to somebody else. And it's what we're called to do. If you know that the Lord's been good to you in certain areas, it's good to talk about it to somebody else. Christians and non-Christians. Because everybody, really, everybody needs to know about the love of the Lord. So, let me see here. One last thing the lesson says here, it says, a rumor is about as hard to unspread as butter. So be careful with your words. Y'all ever tried to unspread some butter? Really difficult. So our words have weight and meaning. One last thing here, because I've got a whole 5 minutes left, and y'all know me, I like to use all my time. Let me go over here. Turn real quick with me, one last thing, to Matthew 26:74. Somebody I heard recently, and there's a small contingent trying to publish some things about Christian liberties, and they view and again, they view cursing and cussing as a Christian liberty, that you can do these sorts of things. I think that Ephesians 4:29 kind of takes that argument out to begin with. Let no corrupt communication. And typically when somebody starts to curse, there's something corrupt or not wholesome behind that speech. But this example right here I think is pretty good. So are we all there? Matthew 26? Matthew 26:74. Oh. Gave me a jump scare there, Brother John. I wasn't quite wasn't ready for that. Actually, let me go a couple more verses up. We'll start at 70. We know the story. This is Peter, and he's denying that he knows Christ at all. So verse 70 says, but he denied before them all, saying, I know not what thou sayest. Verse 71, and when he was gone out into the porch, another maid saw him and said unto them that were there, this fellow was also with Jesus of Nazareth. Verse 72, and he again denied with an oath. He promised he didn't know him. I do not know the man. Verse 73, and after a while came to him they that stood by and said to Peter, surely thou also art one of them, for thy speech bewrayeth or betrayeth thee. Notice something. Then he began to curse and to swear, saying, I know not the man. And immediately the cock crew. And Peter remembered the words of Jesus, which said unto him, before the cock crow, thou shalt deny my name thrice. And he went out and wept bitterly. The thing that most separated him in that moment to those individuals was him cursing. Interesting thought, though, isn't it? Because just saying, he first said it, then he promised, he denied with an oath, and then finally he began to curse, and that was the last. And then that's when he remembered what the Lord said, and everybody did pardon. He wept bitterly. Right? So, if you really want to know, hang on. Let me reword all of that before that thing trying to catch the words before they go out. I just did it. I'm improving. Before you say things to or before you begin to speak around people who don't go to church and who are unsaved, weigh what you say the whole time. Not because you're trying to be fake, but keep Christ in mind when you're talking to somebody else who doesn't know him. Because we are the examples of Christ on earth, are we not? If you claim to be saved, you are Christ's ambassador to the unsaved world. And we know because of Romans, we are debtors to them, or we owe them the gospel. So, I'm pretty sure I've not owed somebody something, and I was bitter or upset or angry or malicious towards that person that I owed a debt towards. Typically, if you owe a debt towards somebody, you're kind to them because you owe them something. You kind of want to keep that relationship good because you're in debt. According to the Bible, we are in debt, in a sense, to the world for the gospel. We owe them the gospel. So when you present yourself to the world, be careful what you say, because they're judging you by what you say, and if they know you well enough, they're looking at your life, and they're going to see and notice if those two things match up. They're not fools, right? They know better than a lot of times Christians give them credit for. And that's why a lot of people and a lot of churches are empty, because a lot of people have been hypocritical, and people that they invited to church knew about it. Sure, yeah. Right. And the thing is, they're right. Because if your mouth claims something, but your life doesn't match up, they have all the right in the world to criticize and to judge us for those things. You know, I know a lot of this teaching stuff seems like common sense stuff, and I'm aware of that, but sometimes it's good to go back to the basics of what we should believe and then act accordingly. Also, forgot to give these out. My printer is acting pretty odd. I did print out 3 different things, though. There's 3 different, I think there are 3 pages each, things that the Bible says about how we should conduct ourselves and how we should use our speech, both good and bad. So if you want those, it's kind of hard to read because my not copier, printer, English is hard some days, y'all. My printer was acting up, so if y'all want those, I'll give them to you after church. Any questions, comments, or concerns before we're done? Okay, that was your chance. You had something to say. That was it right there. So thank you guys for your attentiveness today, and I'll see y'all next week.